So in the last class, we saw this categories of exception. So on the top we have object, then throwable. On the left hand side it's error, then exception, then runtime exception. So can you tell me, Pierre, what are runtime exceptions? Any example of it? Hmm? Any example you can give? Up. Yes, arithmetic what? Arithmetic exception. And any other exception? Index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. Null pointer, excellent. So when do we get them? Like, is it compile time or run time? Okay, it means when you are running the application, then you get the exception. Clear. So we saw that all these exception extends runtime exception. That's why they are runtime exception. So now we will see those exception which extends exception but does not extend runtime exception. It means those exceptions which extend only the exception class, not the runtime exception class. Those exceptions are known as checked exceptions. So the definition is written here. When we talk about handling the exceptions, checked exceptions take up most of our attention. What is a checked exception? A checked exception is an unacceptable condition foreseen by the author of a method but outside their intermediate or immediate control. What do we mean by that? Checked exceptions generally, if I give you example, like SQL exception. Suppose you are trying to connect with a database and the server is down. So it's not your mistake. So that's why the Java or the JVM or the compiler warns us, in fact, enforces us to handle these kind of scenarios, because we cannot be sure every time like the server will be up and running. So that's why we need to handle them. So it means at the compile time, the Java or the compiler will force us to handle them, because it's a kind of scenario where we have no control, right? Similarly, let's say you are doing file handling. You are trying to read a file from some directory, and let's say in that directory the file is not present. Then again, it's not your mistake. Maybe somebody just moved it from that directory to another directory, right? So again, the Java forces us to handle those kind of conditions. Okay, so these categories, these exceptions fall under the category of checked exceptions. Okay. So for example, file not found exception is a checked exception. This exception is thrown if the file that the code is trying to access can't be found. A method say read file can declare it to be thrown when it's unable to access the target file. Checked exceptions are so named because they are checked during the compilation. If a method calls throw a checked exception, the compiler checks and ensures that the calling method is either handling the exception or declaring it to be rethrown. So it's an important point. We'll see like what does it mean by it. So a checked exception is a subclass of, again, exception. We have already seen this, but it's not a subclass of runtime exception. Okay. So now we'll see an example of it. So I'm trying to write a piece of code. We have a Java inbuilt class file input stream, which is used to read the file from a location. And I will try to give some path in that. Now, when you try to declare the classes or create the constructor of that class, the Java will force you to handle the exception. So I will create a new class. Let me call it test checked exception. inside this, let's say I have a method start operation. Okay. And inside this, I have a method read file. Okay. And inside this method, I have the actual file operation. So now I will write the piece of code to read a file from a given location. So I have just created two methods, start operation and read file. So the code is file input stream. Let's say the name of the object is this, and equal to new file input stream. And inside this, I will give the path. Let's say some random path I will give. So let me call it D drive. Then inside this, I have a test folder, and there I have one file1.txt. This kind of thing I am writing. You're getting? I'm just writing a piece of code to handle or to get the file from this path. Inside D drive test file.txt. Okay. So this is the piece of code I am writing. And now if you see the Java, the compiler is forcing us. Since we are using file input stream, so Java compiler is saying either handle this exception. What they are saying, file not found exception. Whenever you are trying to use this class file input stream to get the file from the location, the Java compiler is saying, I am warning you, I am forcing you in fact, because it may happen like the file is not present at this path, then you will get the exception. Okay. So that's why what the Java compiler is saying, either declare the exception or handle it. So it is giving two options to us. Either handle it or declare it. So we'll see the first option, that is how to handle it. So try catch we already know, right? So I will click here. So it will wrap the following inside the try and catch. We know this thing, right? So file input stream, and this is inside the try, and in the catch I have file not found exception. So this is coming from Java compiler, okay? Sorry, Java library. And we have an object E here, and E dot print stack trace. So it's a method of exception which is used to print the complete stack trace. Like if you see this, it will show you like read file is called from start operation, and start operation is called from main method. So it will show the complete stack to us. So let's run this code to see the output. So run as Java application. So I am getting this thing, java.io file not found exception. Then the message is D drive /test. Okay, the path is printed here. No such file or directory. The error is given by the compiler itself. And if you see the hierarchy, so it is like method, and yeah, see like this. So this is read file called from start operation, called from main. And you can actually click here to get the exact location from where the exception is coming. So it is coming from here. Since the Java compiler is not able to find this thing, not Java compiler, in fact the JVM, when the application is running, they are not able to find the file which is present at this path. That's why an exception is thrown. And since we have handled it, in fact the Java compiler forced us to handle it, hence we have cached it. You're getting? So these exceptions are known as checked exception. You can see that at the compile time, the Java compiler is forcing us to either handle it or either declare it. Okay, either handle it or declare it. So now I will follow the next path. I will not handle it. So what is the second option? Throw. So it means this is the one option, try catch, and the other option is throws. So it means throws file not found exception. So it means the method read file can throw file not found exception. So whosoever is calling read file need to handle or declare it. So who is calling read file? Start operation method, right? So now it's the responsibility of start operation to either handle it or declare it. Excellent. So let's say I am delegating it. I am not handling it here. I am also saying I am also throwing the file not found. Now you can see it's the responsibility of start operation. So now you will not do the throws here because it's the main method. So here we need to handle. You can do the throws, but it is not a good practice. Okay, so I will write what? Try catch here. Now see, is there any change? So run as Java application. See, the same thing is printing, right? You're getting? So exception came from here and the complete stack trace is printed, right? From where it is called, from where it is called, from where it is called. It is coming because of this. Yeah, e dot stack trace, right? Clear? So it means for checked exceptions, the rule is either declare it or either handle it, but the Java compiler will force us to do either of these two operations, right? We cannot skip it for the runtime. Clear? Okay. This is occurring because the file is not present at this path. If the file was present at this path, then exception will not come. You will get the normal thing, right? But it is forcing us because we cannot assure without executing, because at the time of execution only you will get to know that. So that is not in your hand if somebody has misplaced or changed the directory of the file. So that's why Java is forcing us. The compiler is forcing us because it's forcing. It's not in our hand. Okay, clear? Perfect. So this was an example of checked exception. So same rules apply here for the unchecked exceptions. We had some rules, right? So similarly, you can have you can experiment with the same rules here. So let me call this as this. Okay. So now let me catch the exception here. So again, you cannot write here. Tell me, can I write this? Catch exception. Can I write this thing? Can I write?
We can write it, but the other thing is like below file not found exception.
You are wrong. Here, we know. Can I write this piece of code or not? On top, I have exception. And below that, I have file not found exception. File not found exception is a child of exception. And if the parent is, yeah, here is now, you are correct. Okay. You have not revised.
No, I have realized that like if exception is there, catch exception is there, then that child exception will not run.
Yes. So that's the concept that I asked you, right? If you have handled the parent exception, then you will not reach the child, right? So that's the answer. You cannot write this.
That's what I'm saying, that this file not found exception.
Okay. So the same rule applies for checked exceptions as well. Great. Okay. Good. So now the question is, can I throw an exception inside the catch block? Can I throw an exception? Yes, we can throw. So you can write any exception. Let's say new runtime exception. So inside, okay, this will not work then. So print this above. So what I have done, I have just asked you a simple question. Can I write throw new runtime exception inside the catch block? Yes, we can write. So run as, sorry. Yes, so we can write this. So what they are saying, exception is coming, then runtime exception is coming inside the file not found, like this. So we can write. Okay. So that was just a question. So now we will see how to create custom checked exceptions. Okay. So it's very simple. If you want custom checked exception, so it means you need to extend which class? Exception. And if you have any doubt, then you can go and check the find not found exception. Since this exception is a checked exception, so we will explore this, whether this is extending exception or runtime. So it is extending IO exception. So let's check IO exception. So IO exception is extending exception. That's why it's a checked exception. If it was extending runtime exception, then it was runtime. Okay, like if you see what arithmetic exception, so it was extending runtime exception. That's why it was runtime. But if you are extending only exception, then it will be checked exception. Control Shift T. So now we will create a simple class, okay, and let me call it manager. Manager not found exception. Okay, manager not found exception. Yeah. I will show you the example, complete example. So public class manager not found exception. I want this class to be treated as checked exception. So I will write, very good, extends exception. Okay. You can create so many here, like, okay, let's do the same example. So instead of manager not found exception, I will write person not found exception. Clear? Let me rename the file. And inside this, I will override the exceptions method.
IO exception was the name just like the arithmetic exception.
Yes. It was the parent of your find not found exception. So it was like find not found, the parent is IO exception and its parent is exception. Okay, similarly, we are creating now. We will create manager not found exception. Its parent will be person not found exception, because doctor not found exception is also a person not found exception. Okay. So we will override one constructor here, and the constructor is this one, where you are passing a message, so that we are able to pass a message in our parent not found exception class. Okay. So how to override? Not override. Yes, we will create a constructor. Sorry, my bad. We are not overriding. We will create a constructor. And you know the concept, right? You need to make the call to super if you want to call that constructor, right? Clear? Simple. Now I will create one more class, manager not found exception. Okay. And this will extend which one? No, I am taking the same example as IO exception. So this will extend person not found exception. Extends person not found exception. Now you need to create the constructor so that you can call that. Getting? It's same as find not found exception was extending IO exception, and IO exception was extending exception. So we have created manager not found exception extends person not found exception, and person not found exception extends exception. Clear? Similarly, you can get doctor not found exception, which will extend person not found exception. So it means the parent is manager not found, the parent is person not found, and the person can be manager, doctor, teacher, patient, nurse. Similarly, we will create all those exceptions. Okay, clear? So now we will see the usage of it. So I'm creating one class, test manager. Okay, so inside this, I have a main method, and before that, I will create a class manager. Okay, clear? And it is having, let's say, private what int id and private string name. Clear? Then source generate getters and setters. And one constructor also, source generate constructor using fields. Clear? Simple manager class I have created, and beneath that I have created test manager class. So we know that we can create this, right? So I'm creating two objects. I'm creating an array of this. Okay. So before that, I will create object. So manager1 equal to new. Its ID is 1 and the name is Mohit. And I will create three objects. Manager2, manager3. We all know this concept. Let me call it pair and issue. So we have three managers and I will create an array of managers. So how to create manager of array? Array of manager, very good, managers equal to new manager and size is 3. Clear? And now we will populate it. So we know how to populate it. Managers of 0 equal to manager 1 and manager of 1 equal to manager 2 and manager of 3 equal to manager 3. Clear? Simple. So now we will create a method in the manager class, okay, to find the list of, to find the given manager, to find the manager, and I will give some ID in that. Okay, so how will you write it? So okay, we'll create here in test manager. Okay, so we will create that method in test manager. So the method name is
So, but on that,
find. So listen the requirement first. So find manager by ID. Okay. So here I will pass the array. I will pass the array. So manager array. How will you write like this? Let me call it managers, comma int ID. You want to search, and this will return what? If the manager is found, it will return manager. Getting? And let me make it static so that we can call it directly from the main method. Okay. Getting? So here I will write the following like this: do operations. So this method is like an empty method which will make call to this. And inside this I will pass the manager. Okay, let's remove the complexity. No need of this. So this, who will tell me the logic of this? What logic? Good question. Problem is not clear, I guess. So the problem is I will pass managers array and one ID inside this. Let's say I'm passing the manager array, this one, and I'm passing the ID as 4 as 1. So I will return the object of manager 1. Getting? If I pass the ID as 3, you will return the object manager 3. If I pass the ID 4, you will return manager not found exception. You will throw one exception. Getting it? So this method will return the object of manager if found with the given ID, else will throw what? Which exception? Manager not exception. Clear? So who will tell me the logic? How to scan an array? What will be the steps? We have already practiced so many examples of this. You guys don't revise. Here, what if? First, I guess we have an array, right? So we need to iterate the array. One for loop will be there or not? For, then what should I write? Okay, int I. Then I less than. I have an array, right? So I don't know the. Very good. Dot length. Then okay. Now tell me.
Then manager I.
Very good. Manager. Managers of I is equal to. Inside the managers array, you have manager object, right? So all you need to write is what? You need to get the ID first, then only you will check, right, with the given ID. You need to check whether this ID is equal to the ID of the managers present inside the managers array. So you will do dot get ID, right? If managers of I dot get ID equal to ID, then this one is the manager that we were looking for, right? So what we will do? So we will, yes, we will return manager. We will return not manager, but manager of I, right? Getting it? Okay. So one better thing is, instead of writing return here, can I write like this? I am creating an object, manager object equal to null. I am giving. And if the manager object we are able to find, then I will say this object will be equal to manager of, we can say, right? And no need to scan further because ID is unique. So break and come out of the loop, right? Can't we say this here? What I am doing, if the managers of I dot get ID, inside the managers, what we have three objects, and I'm checking ID for each of one. And if I somehow find the object of that manager whose ID I was looking for, then I will assign that particular object inside this object, and I will come out of the loop because my problem is solved now because I found that manager.
Our task was to find the manager by the given ID.
See the doc, line number 47.
So we pass the manager array in the find manager ID method.
Here. This one, why we have created this? Instead of returning from here directly, I am just refactoring it. That was also right, but this way is pretty better to know, right? So now it is partially completed. So before returning the manager object, what I will do, I will check if the manager object is not equal to, sorry, is equal to null. If the manager object is equal to null, means we have not found any manager with the given ID, then we will throw what? Now throw is used to throw the exception, throw new manager not found exception with a message manager with the given ID is not present. Getting done? Else you will return. Else you will return. manager object. Now we are getting one compilation error. Since you have created a checked exception, so the Java is saying what? Either declare it or handle it. So we will try to declare it. So now if we see the documentation, so it is saying throws manager not found exception. Okay, and at the time when you do this, now this is the proper function, right? So now we will make a call to this particular thing. So find manager by ID. I'm passing the object array and the ID. So this will return what? A manager object to me. So let me call it manager object equal to this. Done. Now we are getting the compilation. Why? Because this is throwing manager not found exception and this is a checked exception. So either handle it or declare it. Since we are in main method, so it's like our front end. So here we will catch it. Okay. So on the top level, we always handle. Clear? So now here you can print the details like this, system.out.println. If the exception is not coming, we can print it, right? Manager ID is plus manager dot get ID. Yes. And the manager name is perfect. So let's run it. So run as Java application. So we are getting array index out of bound exception. Oh my God, some other exception we are getting. So we are getting at line number 42. Why? Okay, I made a mistake here. So it should be 2, right? Because we have created an array of 3 and I was trying to access the third index. Great. Now run. So the manager ID is 2 and the name is Pierre. So let's say instead of passing the ID 2 here, I am passing the ID which is very good, not present. So what should I get now?
Exception.
Very good. With a message, right? So see the output. Manager not found exception. Manager with the given ID is not present. And from where we are getting it? We are getting it at this line. Getting? Clear? Yes, I will share the link. Simple. So let's try to debug this. Then you will get a better clarity. So let's debug as Java application. So let's change the perspective. You will get a separate session of this, like how to debug an application. So F1, F6 I am doing. Then I'm going inside this method and here. So this is what is happening behind the scenes. So inside the managers, we have 3 objects. Okay. If you see, so manager of 0 is having ID 1, name Mohit. Manager is having, second object is having ID 2 and like this. Okay. So this is my manager array completely. And this is the ID which I am passing, ID 4. So now see the logic, how it is working. Since no such ID is equal to the ID which we have passed, so manager object is still null, right? So this will throw an exception. Once it will throw an exception, you will come here inside the catch block. And here I am printing the complete stack trace, e.print stack trace. So that's why I am getting this message. Trace is actually used to print the complete stack trace, means from where you called and where is the exception, where the exception occurred exactly. So we can simply click here. So okay, at this line the exception occurred. Getting? So we have seen try, catch, checked exception, as well as throws keyword is used to declare the exception. Throw is used to actually throw an exception. Okay. And since it's a checked exception, it's a checked exception. So either you have to throw it or try, catch, handle it. So this rule is known as handle or declare rule. Clear? So in the GitBook, you will find this example here, something like this, like create custom exception, how to create, you need to hand this, like extend the exception class. Okay. So I have created the same problem for you like this. So this is your homework. Inside the problem, I will share the link. create a class book with ID name and ID name as a member variables, like we created the manager. You can compare this with it. Like class manager, you will create a class book. Then you will create a class book not found exception as a checked exception. You know how to create a checked exception, and create one argument constructor which is accepting string message. Inside that, you will make a call to super. Let me show you this also. So manager not found exception is extending not parent not found. You will extend exception here, and you will create one constructor like this. In fact, you have to create like this. Okay. Then the third step is create a test class with an array of 5 book. Okay, 5 books with ID starting from 1. Any random name you can give. Then create a method find by ID which will accept book array and one ID, which will take the previously created book array and one ID to find the book. Okay. Now print found if the book is present, like I have printed manager ID, manager name with the given ID, else throw book not found exception with the message book with the given ID is not present. Handle the exception in main method and print the stack trace in cache block. Clear? It is the same we have practiced, right? Okay. So this was all about checked exceptions. So I'm stopping the meeting.